Hi there, I'm Diane Callahan, developmental editor and YouTuber quotidian writer. I'm here with authors Jordan Riley Swan and Hero Bowen as part of Story Garden Publishing. And they've recently released their collaboratively written novel, Limelight and Larceny, which is a crime comedy novel about a group of theater nerds, I guess you could say, trying to save their beloved theater. Um,
I like how you're starting with the insult so
yeah.
that we can work up from there.
Mhm, mhm. Yes, but
No.
they're a lovable group of misfits. That's what it is, really. But I really want to talk to both of them about what it's like to write a novel with another person, since that's not done very often, and it can be exciting and can be aggravating to collaborate on writing a novel. So, but ultimately, it's resulted in this wonderful book that I'm holding in my hands here. So, I want to ask you guys, how does it feel to write a book on your own versus writing one together? Like, and
Oh,
yeah.
that's it's a very different experience. But um, I still am a ghostwriter for many years, so it's sort of a middle ground between that and writing alone. So it's not such alien territory to me for it to be bounced between a few people. But it is different, and I think it's more dynamic in a way because you get to bounce ideas off a person, and if you've got a shared sense of humor, you know, there might be a joke you miss, or a joke that you're not sure about, and then they'll go, oh, this is great, or how about this punchline, or it's different but not alien, I would say. But yeah, I like it, I enjoy it for the most part.
Well, I don't know about the joke parts. I had my sense of humor surgically removed a long time ago. Kept getting in the way. So I could say that I've always had women telling me what to do anyways. So it was really easy for me to work with Hero on this on this series. But I think she nailed it on that one thing. Uh, the bouncing back and forth of ideas, two heads are really better than one. In three, because there's a lot of times that Diane herself is included in this process. So we're making a book collaboratively among a group. Now, I would say like a camel, a horse designed by committee, there is a certain point where too many voices is going to make a muddy stew, but you get two strong voices and someone to kind of keep redirecting them between the traffic lanes, and you will find a really good book at the end of it.
Yeah, and I think something
Hopefully.
that helped a lot was that you had very compatible writing styles and senses of
Mm.
humor. So that aspect of the collaboration worked really well. So I was glad because I knew Hero ahead of time, and then I knew Mark ahead of time. So I was doing a little bit of literary
Jordan,
matchmaking.
you knew
Yes.
Jordan ahead of
Well,
time.
yes, but then even the name on your Zoom thing is
Says
different.
Bernie.
Yes, so I mean, everybody's gonna be confused. And I was going to say, like, oh, we need to get the names right. So I'm sorry, I will try to call you Hero and Jordan, because that is the names that appear on our book for the people watching there.
That's my name, what are you talking about?
And we will talk about pseudonyms in another video coming up. So what's the process like for collaboration? So what are the steps as you guys see them?
First is outlining, obviously. Otherwise you don't have a story, so plot outlining. That kind of changes, like sometimes it's like in your you wrote the Diane, you wrote the plot for Wish Hunter, but for Limelight and Larceny it was mostly written by Jordan. Mostly written by him, and then we sort of had a little discussion about it, about where, like, just to make sure everyone's on the same page. Book joke. And then from there it was passed on to me, doing the first couple of chapters, sending that on, make sure the tone is right from the get-go. And then I think we did it in like little chapter chunks, so sending them to Jordan, and then he would review them, send them back, edits would be made by me, and then I would send to you, Diane, and then pinballing around like that until the book was finished, kind of thing. I think
Yeah.
that's
Yeah, the chapter thing I think was probably the best way for us to work, because Hero would put 2 chapters together, first draft them, throw them at me, and we could make course corrections right out of the gate. If there was a problem with a character, if there was a joke that wasn't landing, or there was a character that was suddenly a surprise to us, like fantastically funny. On the back end of it, I'm laying down the track as the train's coming, and we could make little adjustments of, okay, well, let's lean into Henry a lot more, because the voice that
Yeah.
Hero came up with for Henry was so much better than I had imagined. In the original version of the book, Henry was in the first chapter and in the last chapter, and he was the mastermind that we see and hear about, but we don't ever really interact with. By the time she had written the first chapter, I added 3 extra chapters into the book just so we could have Hero's POV, because that's how good it was and how funny he was in the story itself. So it's getting it in little stages like that really, really helped. I know that
Mm.
some other collaborative writers, someone will draft the whole thing and send it
Yeah.
back, and I really prefer the method that we're using right now.
Yeah, I think it does allow for a lot more flexibility and, like you said, course correction, so that if you have different ideas, then you can sort of shape it that way. And that is
Yeah.
the fun part of collaborating, is you're always like sort of building off of what the other person is doing. And yeah, but then ultimately, Jordan is the one sort of has the high level picture for Limelight and Larceny, at least. And I think that's also good too, to have one person sort of being the foundation of the story. Like they have the general arc of it, and then so
Yeah.
that way you maybe don't have as much competition, I guess, between ideas. Like you don't feel as precious about it, like, oh, this is really Jordan's idea and I'm playing around in his sandbox, versus, you know, if Hero came up with an idea and she would be the one more steering it that way. So I can see how that that would work in that situation.
Yeah,
But
I would tack onto that, that in any collaborative, there will never, ever, ever be a 50-50. Someone is going to have to be at least 51% and makes the absolute final decisions. Now, for Elaine, for Hero and I, it was you that ended up being the extra 1% who would make the final decision. So it all worked out.
yeah, it worked really well. And so did anything surprise you about collaborating, especially like particularly on this novel? Like was there anything that when you were writing it that you were just surprised about how it turned out beyond the Henry added POVs?
Well, I'm going to jump in before
Mhm.
Hero on this one,
Go
because she's
ahead.
got a lot of experience, and probably is nowhere near as surprised as I was. The British idioms, because Hero
Hey.
is UK, and some of the British idioms that come out are just absolutely fantastic. So much so that one of the book series I want to write in the future will have a British main lead, just so I can keep eating these delicious things coming from Britain. Like, what did we learn today? Blaggery? What was it?
Blagging.
Blagging. We learned
Blagging,
blagging
yeah.
today, and I'm a better man for it.
We're blagging this interview.
We're
We are
blagging it
blagging this.
away. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, so to answer the clickbaity title of this video, why do you think more people don't collaborate on writing novels?
I think it's a balancing act, isn't it? And a lot of people who write are not saying that they have big egos, but they have big ideas. And a lot of people are unwilling to relinquish any control over that idea. As I say, I've been a ghostwriter for years, so I have no ego or problem with relinquishing anything or doing anything. So I think it was easy for me to sort of take that step into this middle ground of collaborative, rather than having no name, no say, kind of really over what happened with a book. But I think some people find that very difficult, because it's, especially if you have two clashing ego's probably not the right word, but you know what I mean.
Mhm.
Where they can't, you know, what is it, kill your darlings? They can't, like, one will go, well, I really want this to stay in, and someone will be like, but it doesn't fit narratively, or, you know, this character is weak, and someone will be like, I really like this character. And I think arguments and things can happen, and that's why people are unwilling to collaborate on something, especially if it's a very personal idea. I think writers don't want to give that to somebody else necessarily. But if you find a partner to write with who isn't like that, and it's not necessarily something that's like so personal that you really should just write it yourself, if that makes sense. Then it works. It's good. It's fun. You know.
I'm gonna piggyback right off that and say that there are some projects that I am unemotional about, that are just ideas I've had that I'm willing to share. And just like Hero said, there's one or two that are so precious to me. There is no way I'm gonna even struggle to have a developmental editor read it, because they're gonna say, this isn't gonna work. You need to do that. And I'm gonna fight that tooth and nail, because that's personal to me. When it came to Limelight and Larceny, the concept was pulled from another draft of a different book series I was working on, and we slapped the first plot together in about a week, because we wanted to work with Hero. That was the goal, was let's create something that we can work with Hero, because Diane's worked with Hero in the past on other projects. And so we wanted to do something with her. And then Wish Hunter was coming down the line, and we needed something quick, fast, down and dirty. So I'm not emotionally attached to it at all. So ego gets put, because I have a monstrous ego, but this one could be put back on the back burner, because it's a shared universe that we're building together, just because we wanted to work together. And I think that can help as well.
Yes, very much. I love it. So do you think that there's any sort of stigma against multiple authorship novels? Or have you encountered anything like that from people?
I haven't encountered anything like that, but I think there is a sort of twofold stigma. One is that you're not good enough to write it yourself, which is, oh, I'm not going to swear, which is rubbish. You know, because was it Terry Pratchett and Neil Gaiman?
Neil Gaiman,
yeah. And it's like, you would never dare. And if anyone did dare say that neither of them were good enough to write it on their own, then they'd be shot. But yeah, there's that. That's the sort of one hand of it. And the second hand is, well, they don't think it's going to be as good, because it'll be disjointed, it'll be jarring to have two voices put together in a story. But the artistry of it is in blending that, so that you can't go, oh, that's A, that's B. It becomes C, as it were.
Yes.
And then I haven't experienced any dubiousness about it, but I think it is strange to see, well, it's unfamiliar to see two names on a book, but I think it's becoming more seen, if that's the right.
Yeah.
Well, for me, it also helped that I'd already written and published a book. So I knew I could do it on my own. It wasn't like this was the very first thing I ever did. So being able to say, okay, the heart's bidding, it is done, it is out there, people like it, that I know I can write. So now I could put that ego box aside and say, okay, I don't care sharing a title on the cover. And when we first started talking about it, one of the conversations we had was just hiring a straight up ghostwriter and just putting Jordan's name on it. And I'm like, no, I could never do that, because I can't take credit for someone else's work. It's just not in my nature. And so Diane suggested, well, you can put them on the cover and you can give them credit. And I'm like, oh, I didn't really think about that.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. But as big as my ego is, I don't care about things like sharing cover, sharing dedication, sharing acknowledgments. That's, it's a group effort. Everybody should be rewarded at the end of the day for a group effort. And then another comment that was made earlier about two writers working together. The way it works so well for us is Hero does the first draft. So this house is built at this point. It is a standing house that I wouldn't have to touch a word on it, give her the plot line, and we could just publish it. Slap a copy on it and publish it. That's how clean. Oh, stop! That's how clean the draft is, and that's how clean the story is. It's been told. What's happening is I get to come in and decorate inside the house. I get to come in and hang the curtains and say, no, this room's wrong. We need to demolish this room and build another room over here, because I need a bigger kitchen. And that is a lot. It's time consuming, but by the time we're done, I'm not exhausted from building the house. So I had fun going in and decorating. Of course, you come and tell me I have to change the curtains anyways. So I guess I contribute. I like to say I do contribute. Go ahead, Elena.
I was going to say Dan comes in and is like, no, that was a load-bearing wall. Why did you do that?
No, it's a great analogy. That's perfect. Exactly. So what tips do you have for other writers that are looking to collaborate on a novel? Like, what makes a good collaborator? What are red flags? What should people be looking for?
Like I said, it's make sure the project isn't overly like, I'm trying to think of how to phrase it, isn't like something that's from your soul.
Yeah.
Like for either one of you, because if it's that precious to you and like that close to you, you're gonna have issues. But it's just find somebody who is willing to, I don't know, just collaborate really. I know that sounds really simple, but it's someone who has the willingness to collaborate instead of being like, oh, well, you know, this might be a way for me to do this, or this might be a way for me to get my book out there if I, you know, pool resources, but then have the unwillingness to do that it'll just be a mess. But I don't know about red flags. I've not really collaborated with enough people to know what the red flags are. So
non-finishers. That's a big red flag.
Right.
Someone or people who wait till 1 penny before midnight to send when it's, you know, due on the 10th and it's 9.
Yeah.
And you know that that's going to be a problem right out of the gate, because if they're non-finisher, you're going to do the rest and they're going to be, oh, well, I still get credit even though I only did 6% at the beginning.
Yeah.
And you could tell almost immediately if somebody is finishing. And we knew Hero's back catalog was exhaustively large, so we knew it wasn't going to be a quitter. And Diane knew that I don't quit. Once we start a project, we do not, because we'd worked enough that she sees I will finish the project. So right there, we knew there was no red flags. The only red flag I had with Elena was the British thing. now it's my
outrageous. How dare you? How very dare you?
I love it so much. But that's awesome. So thank you guys so much for sharing your perspective on this. And Limelight Larceny, our wonderful collaboratively written novel here, is available in print, an ebook, and full cast audiobook with 12 different narrators. Like, that's a huge number of narrators. There's also, the audiobook is also a collaboration. Look at that. Okay.
Look at that.
So, it's wonderful. So we have links to those in the description down below. And so we can't wait to show you what else will bloom in our story garden.